Hello, everyone. Welcome to HRMT 622, week number 4. Let's go and have a look at our agenda for today. In week number 4, we're going to talk about team dynamics, plus the importance of communication in teams. There are 3 parts in our lecture today. Part A, groups versus teams and their characteristics, 2 common challenges we might face in teams. Part B talks about team effectiveness model, and 3 important criteria: environment, design, and processes. And part C, we're talking about decision making plus some common strategies. We need to keep 2 words in our mind. Number 1, groups versus teams. And sometimes we call it informal groups when 2 or more people get together and shape a form of collaboration. This is also common in companies. However, when we talk about a team, this is in fact a group of people with more business-oriented goals. They have some complementary skills, and there is a specific goal to accomplish, to achieve an outcome. They have some performance goals and kind of an approach they're going to be accountable for. And these 2 keywords we need to keep in mind. Now, you might ask this question, why teams? There are a bunch of reasons. Usually in companies or businesses, when we're dealing with more complicated, complex, or even interrelated tasks, we believe that teams outperform rather than individuals. Or we refer to teams when knowledge, talent, skills, and abilities are dispersed across different people in your company. And teams could be a better representation for collaboration or empowerment at workplace. Now, let me tell you about old and new forms of team environments in the past. Perhaps many years ago when we talked about teams, people follow the orders from their managers. However, in new team environments, employees generate initiatives. They have voices. They share their ideas and collaborate with their team partners. In the past, managers charted courses. So they could design everything. However, in the new team environment, team charts its own steps. And when you say charts, means they plan. They write the agenda for their activities. In the old work environment, people conformed to managers' direction. They were submissive, listened, followed the orders. So the style of management was more like top-down approach. Whatever comes from the management, the top part, should be followed by the inferior sections in business. However, in the new environment, we have this right to think for ourselves. People rock boat, and when we say rock boat, they could challenge the environment, they could challenge the operations in teams. And finally, in the old environment, people cooperated by suppressing thoughts and feelings. Thoughts, feelings weren't really important. Rules were dominant. However, in new team environment, people express them easily, and they also create this or shape this in informal groups. As this is the next thing we want to talk. But one thing that I want to tell you is about what are some common characteristics when we look at teams. Tomorrow, if you're working in a company and when you look at different teams, perhaps analyze them through these 3 criteria. So you can perhaps identify, is this a working team? Is this a practical team or not? Now, the first criterion is called performance. In a very simple language, how long the team exists. Now, it means that for example, if you look at some accounting teams in different companies or marketing teams, perhaps they have a longer life. So the lifespan in teams, how long is this team working? is referred to the term performance. The next thing is skill diversity. It means that people from different backgrounds, different areas of skills, knowledge can contribute in that. For example, low diversity teams is that people have very similar abilities, right? However, the high diversity, people with different backgrounds in different areas and different capabilities. And the third criterion is authority dispersion. It means when decision making distributed throughout the team, or it refers to the degree that decision making responsibility is distributed throughout the team. Is not only in the authority of a few members. So managers don't make all the decisions. Different departments, different individuals can also be decision makers. So we need to look at each team through these three lenses to see the operation, how they live, how they survive. But do we have always advantages when we talk about teams, or are there some challenges? Of course, one of the main dominant advantages is the psychological intimacy. When people collaborate, when people are in teams, that's a great time to share their feelings and thoughts. So it isn't in your book, psychological intimacy, but this is a very important advantage when we talk about teams. However, of course, when you work in teams, you make better decisions, you improve your productivity, more revenue, more profit comes to your company. You can share, communicate information easily, or in one word, you have a better coordination. All the parts are working properly. The third thing, as I mentioned here, it also improves your motivation. So you are more motivated to contribute to the overall outcomes of your team. But when we talk about challenges, I want you to keep in mind, because in your future career, you might face these challenges. Or as someone who is working HR, or as someone who has finished his or her MBA, you're expected to be familiar with these two keywords: process loss and social loafing. Now, in a very simple language, when we talk about process loss, is that it's hard to manage all people in a group, right? You have faced in the past when you were when you were a student during your bachelor studies, when you were put in a team, it wasn't easy to handle everything. So in terms of time, in terms of norms, the roles you assigned, timing, activities, submissions, planning. So of course, it's not that easy to work in a team. We might face some coordination challenges, and those are called process losses. Especially when you have a new member in your team after a week, it's hard to make sure that he or she is working properly with the rest of the team. And that could be one of the biggest challenges. I really like these two, but I want to focus more on social loafing in my next slide. Just keep in mind this piece of information would be very useful for your future job interviews. However, it's not everything about coordination, the mechanical parts of the team operation. Sometimes we are dealing more with motivational parts. So there could be some motivational challenges. People lose their motivation. People do not give their thoughts, efforts, or time even. And it gets less and less. If this happens, that is called social loafing. But let's look at this a little bit more. So keep in mind, social loafing refers to motivational challenges. And the thing is that the failure of a group member to contribute his or her personal time, efforts, thoughts, and even other sources to the group. So that could be another challenge. But do we have some solutions for that? What happens tomorrow? You work in an HR department and you feel that the employees in that company have lost their motivation, or it's getting lower and lower every day. As an HR, so your managers might get back to you with some ideas. Now, there could be some solutions when we face social loafing. The first thing is that perhaps when we put our employees in smaller teams, social loafing won't happen commonly. So, creating smaller teams, this is one thing. Number two, when people do something in their groups, if whatever they do is measured, that gives them a better motivation. When you provide them feedback, that gives them motivation. So that stops the appearance of social open loafing. Or another thing is that you can assign some specialized tasks to the team members. So these two people are responsible for this area of marketing, suppose. These two people are working in advertisement development. So when you specialize tasks, okay, rather than give them the big picture, that could be a very good solution. Now, let's go to part B. After knowing a little bit about teams versus groups, some characteristics, three important characteristics, some advantages or challenges. Let's go, how can we have more effective teams? There's a beautiful model, and I want you to keep in mind, I put numbers for you. Like, if you want to have a very successful team, a very effective team, three interrelated items are important. First, the organization itself, or the environment, the physical atmosphere, the physical place your employees are working there. Number two, how do you design your teams? And number three, how your team members, or what are some common processes your team members will go through? If these three elements are interrelated and if they overlap properly, you'll achieve good team effectiveness. So today, I would like to briefly talk about each in our part number B. When we talk about organization and team environment, these are the essential conditions. So we begin with number one, the company itself, all the resources that you have in order to provide a safe place for team working. That could be your communication systems, the platforms you're using. Let's look at our university as an example, UCW. We have our Moodle portal, right? We have Microsoft Teams. These two platforms perhaps provide foundations for our collaboration, for our team activities. And they're already there, and our university provides them. So this is called the importance of environment or the organization when they provide essential conditions. The importance of leadership, the structure. We have chairs, vice chairs at this university. There are a lot of clubs for you, right? Like writing coach services, library services. We have classrooms, we have study rooms. And of course, there are some scholarships for you, some incentives and promotions, student clubs, activities, games, etc. So if you want to have a good team, the base or the essential thing is that you need to have the foundation or some essential resources. But number two, when the foundation is ready, it's the time to shape our team, is the time that we create it. Now, design is another keyword that we need to think of. So when we talk about design, if you look at this part, I want to show you quickly. When we talk about design, three things are important. Number one, task characteristics. What do you want to give them? What kind of task the team members are going to get? The size and the team composition. I'm going to talk about them briefly. So the first thing is that when we talk about task characteristics, how the tasks are assigned or designed. There's a beautiful concept in your book. It's on page 207. It's about the importance of task interdependence. Why is it important? Because we have people who are doing these tasks, and there are different positions, different activities. That's why interdependence is important. I'm not doing this project alone. I'm doing this project with the presence of others. That's why, okay, dependence is occurring here. Now, there are three levels. The first one could be when we have pooled interdependence. In a very simple language, when we have a bunch of items or we have shared resources and employees are using them for their activities. Another easy example is that, like, what is happening in that team, each person is completing one piece of a puzzle. So keep in mind the pooled interdependence means that teams are working, people are working in teams. Each person is responsible for one piece of activity or one item. However, sequential interdependence, again, is a form of design, right? If you look at a car manufacturing or an assembly line in car manufacturing, so some people work on the body itself. Then the body goes to the room, they color, they structure the frame, and then it goes to interior guys, they work in interior, and then the wheels, the engine guys, and then the final steps, for example, safety control. Now, there's a line of activities and people complete each other once at a time. And then reciprocal interdependence is a very advanced form of interdependence. For example, if you look at Apple company or some software companies, some people are working on the engineering part of the iPhone 14. However, other people are working on its marketing and advertisement. Some people are in the stores and dealing with the sales. Some people are in customer service and they are working there. And all these groups are interrelated. They are working together and their work is interdependent. Now, when we talk about design, the next thing was composition, a very important thing that we need to keep in mind. Team effectiveness depends on the qualities of people. So just one word is important. Composition means the quality of team members. It means that how well these people are engaged in different tasks. They might have task-related behaviors. Are they motivated? Do they help each other? Do they support each other? So there are 5 main categories when we refer to team composition. And as you can see, or it's called also 5 C's is another term. When we talk about cooperating, and so you can see that sometimes team members show this kind of behavior. They help each other. They run some mentorship programs. If you want to work at RBC, perhaps week number 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll receive some help from the other clerks at banks in the form of a mentoring program. If yes, this is an acceptable team behavior. And this is part of team composition. So a successful team, an effective team cooperates. However, when we talk about coordination, a lot of good teams around the world try to make sure that they have follow-ups, they have check-ins, and all the team members are working properly. They have some checklists. They give weekly reports, monthly reports. If yes, so the team composition or the team quality is really good, and that is part of team coordination. Communication is another important aspect when we talk about composition or in the category of design. A lot of companies around the world use different mediums or channels for communication. So be careful, guys. When we talk about medium, is the type of message you produce. For example, if you write an email is the medium. If companies write some business reports or business memos, Those are all mediums. However, when you have your report, how do you want to give it to your boss? You need a channel. So channel is different. These are also the key concepts in chapter number 9. Now, when I write my email, my medium is the email itself. But when I use Gmail or Microsoft Teams to send it to my manager, Microsoft Teams is the channel. So please make sure that you don't get them confused. Okay. Now, comforting is another key aspect, or is a very common behavior in a lot of companies, like Microsoft or Amazon, when people show empathy or share their feelings. So in a team, we need to do this. And finally, of course, the most important thing, teams work hard to diagnose conflicts first and to offer some solutions. The next item, if you remember, when we talk about the team effectiveness, was the process. It means what teams really do, or how are they shaped, right? So when we look at this, there is a kind of stages of their development. Imagine you're working in a company and you're going to develop a team, or you're in a class and your teachers want you to form a team. Now, the first stage is the forming process. So it's the time that you guys, for example, discover your expectations, you get familiar about the tasks, you try to offer some values, you set some goals for your team. One goal can be, hey, we're going to get a good mark. Some people say that mark is important, but we want to learn something, or we want to learn something for our future. So all these things are the beginning stage of development for teams, and that's called the forming stage. Now, step number 2, we have storming. Okay, and storming is the time that you're going to, maybe sometimes interpersonal conflict happens. Some people want to be the leader. Some people will say, hey, I'm not going to write, I'm going to search. So sometimes we might have some conflicts. That's why it's called storming. And when you want to assign roles, people aren't really flexible, or might not be flexible with this part. So establishing norms also happens here. For example, we should talk to each other every day. You cannot, for example, we cannot communicate on this platform. We need to meet each other face to face. Or the other rules, please respect the time, please be on time. These are the norms that you provide for your team activities. When you set these things, when the storming is done, we go to the next stage, and that is norming. Now, norming is dealing more with, this is also the almost the final stage that we are talking. When all the rules are established, when all the team members agreed on the key concepts, they're doing their jobs, they have formed their mental models, their imagination is set for this, and then we're going to work on cohesion. I'll talk more about cohesion later. And these people trust each other, they're doing their job. And then the next stage is performing. And when we talk about performing, this is the place where we're all ready to solve the problems. And here we reach at the maximum or the optimized version of coordination. All team members are doing properly, they're submitting on time, they're following the goals of the team, and if there's a challenge, they know how to solve it quickly. So when you're working in a team, always ask this question, where am I in this process? That's a very good thing. Or sometimes as an HR, now why is this important? Why 8.5 chart or stages of development is important? Because sometimes you're being called and say that, hey, this team is facing some challenges in this company. So you guys can ask a few questions to make sure where the team members are at the moment. Are they just the beginning stage forming? Are they just the stage of conflicts, setting some norms? Or no, the rules are set, they all agree, they are doing their job. Or where are they? Or no, they're just maximizing, or they are really working efficiently. So sometimes adjourning can happen. When we say adjourning in a very simple language means that when the team wants to be disbanded, sometimes positive results happened. Now the team wants to disband, or we're going to say goodbye to the team members, or sometimes for some negative reasons we are not going to continue with this team. There are two key words when we talk about process. Remember I told you about norms? Now, norms are informal rules. And when we talk about norms, perhaps they are also related to some behaviors that we might have. But how do we create norms, or where do norms come from? Norms come from your previous experiences, of course. For example, last term, you guys had a group project. You worked with your classmates, and then you saw that time management is always a problem. So this term, when you want to have another group project, one norm or one informal rule is that, hey everyone, please be on time. Please respect our time policy. So from your experiences, or maybe sometimes from your previous critical incidents, that's why we try to establish norms in our groups. Are they useful? Absolutely. They improve your performance, the well-being of team members. We can, of course, solve our conflicts easily, and overall, they are very helpful. But how about roles? Are they similar? Now, roles are a little bit different. So roles are similar to norms because they both shape your patterns of behavior. However, roles are mostly applied to one person or a few members. So norms are applicable to all your team members. We all need to respect time. All need to respect face-to-face communication. All need to follow, for example, commitments or dedication in our job. But roles are different. So my role in this team is to search and do some development activities. Your role here is to write the report. Your role is to submit it, for example. Now, the next thing in process is team cohesion. Now, two keywords are for cohesion. Number one, emotional experiences and motivation. So when teams and the way they process, when they refer to these keywords, then your team has a very high cohesion. So cohesion means that the emotional ties, emotional experiences at your work. Now, a team with very high cohesion is the time all the team members are attracted to the team. They take the ownership of the success. And the team is part of their self-concept. Remember? All these things will prove that this team has a good cohesion. So anything related to emotional aspects, or better job satisfaction, better team satisfaction, can be put under the category of cohesion. Now, the next thing we're going to talk, and is the last thing in process, how to have a more effective team, is the importance of trust. Our book talks about 3 important levels of trust. But what I want to tell you, how do we trust people in our life? I don't want to talk about our business life. We can talk about personal life. We need time, right? We need time to trust people. That's why in business, the key word is time. Sometimes we have calculus-based trust. So when we are doing a team project, we are at the beginning, we don't know the other team members. So this kind of trust is called calculus. Very basic, at the very low level. You're just going to know people, and sometimes you have this feeling that I trust this person or I don't trust it. Maybe you do trust, and next week you have the opposite feeling. So whatever happens, your trust at the calculus level. Then over time, when you work with all the team members, the feeling of trust grows. So over time, it becomes a knowledge-based trust. This happens to our personal life too. For example, what is in your mind about doctors, your family doctors? Are these people, do you trust them? Yes, because we believe that they are doctors, and based on our experience, they helped us, they helped our parents. So we trust them normally, right? Or we trust police officers. Now, these are called knowledge based. However, when we talk about identification, it's the highest format of trust. When you're working for a long time and you have had a lot of good records of trust, then it becomes identified or identification based. So it's the more stable one, it's more rooted. Now, for calculus based trust in business, there's a term called CBT. That is also another important point to keep in mind. Now, thank you very much for everything. Now, just we go to the last part, part C, when we talk about more about decision making. When we talk about decision making companies, this is a very important issue, and decision making, in fact, might have some problems. So teams make decisions, and it's not always easy. For us, it's good to know about these 4 constraints or 4 challenges team members might face while making decisions. You will have this very soon in your final project in assignment number 4, when you want to work with your team members, so you might have some problems with making decisions. Now, please look at these 4 later, or when you're working as a business person in a company. These could be the problems many teams could face. Now, the first thing, very popular, very simple, is called time constraints. We know that when we work in team, we're under time pressure. What kind of time? Time to know each other, time to build rapport, relationship. We need time to agree some rules. That's not easy. It's time consuming. We also need time to know the norms of the teams or the roles that we have been given, right? So all these things can affect the way teams make decisions, and this can be a barrier, a constraint. However, another important thing is evaluation, apprehension. Now, apprehension in a very simple language means fear. When we have this feeling of evaluation, when you're in a team, you're always afraid of, what if I share this idea with the team? Is it a silly idea? And how about if I mention this idea and my team members believe that I'm so silly or stupid? Or sometimes the opposite. I have great ideas, but whenever I want to talk about them, my team members look at me differently, as if I am someone who is arrogant or selfish. So what you do, you stop sharing your ideas, you don't collaborate with your team members, or you are not willing to make important decisions in your team. So it is mostly based on your desire to create a kind of a public image inside your team. Sometimes, of course, we have peer pressure. So the pressure that you get from people around you, and then sometimes your co-workers don't agree with you. So, and if this happens a lot, you're unwilling to share your ideas, and that can affect your role in that decision making. Another issue is overconfidence or inflated team efficacy. Sometimes you are too overconfident, or sometimes too underconfident. Now, in both forms, you could make worse decisions. When we say you, means you and your team members can make worse decisions. Okay, so in your next project, always think about this: what hinders, what prevents us from making decisions? Is it time? Do we need to have more time, or is it evaluation? I don't want to share because they evaluate, or I'm always under spotlight. Is it the peer pressure? They agree with you or disagree with you. Sometimes they disappoint you. Or is it that your ideas are overconfident? Okay. And so you don't want to share your ideas, and it looks too big or too minor to share your ideas. Now, the final point we're going to talk about is how can we improve decision-making companies. A very common one is brainstorming. It's very common in different companies. And when we talk about brainstorming, it happens in verbal version. When your manager asks your ideas about some topics or projects, and you guys speak freely. If you want to be successful, we don't need to criticize others, just express our ideas freely. And brainstorming, the nature, share as many as ideas possible. However, there could be some problems with brainstorming. Number one is a production blocking. Now, what is this? It happens when, if you remember the last two, social loafing might happen here. And social loafing, if you remember, are those emotional or those motivational factors that you're not motivated to work anymore. So the problem is that sometimes people are not willing to share their ideas because they have faced a social loafing or evaluation apprehension. So you don't want to share your ideas in brainstorming because you get negative feedback or maybe peer pressure. But sometimes what happens in fixation or conformity effect is another limitation in brainstorming. Sometimes we begin brainstorming, your other team members have great ideas, and those ideas are winners. So you don't need to share yours, or you don't have time to share yours. And that could be another problem with brainstorming. In many companies around the world, they say, hey, let's not just use the verbal version. Let's do something in writing. That's why they have a written version. Now, that's called brain writing. They're going to write in short pieces and then share their ideas. It could be in the form of a survey or some notes. These days, we have also electronic brainstorming. This is also very popular. And the last one is nominal group technique. Nominal group is different. Still, nominal is a kind of brain writing with verbal stage. However, there's no debate. If you look at brainstorming, it has debate. People share ideas, sometimes against or for. However, when we have nominal group, it is verbal, but there's no debate. People share their ideas one by one, and then there's a kind of a system for voting silently. And some companies believe that nominal group would be more effective because we don't want to have verbal conflicts. We want to reach a conclusion faster. Thank you very much. That was all about the importance of teams. This week in our class, we're going to do some team activities. So please make sure you guys are all familiar with these keywords. Also, we need to think of the importance of communication. Chapter 9 talks about 3 or 4 important types of communication at workplace: verbal, written, non-verbal, and visual. Maybe visual is not there, but keep in mind visual information is also very important. Visual communication and at workplace, especially for teams, in the form of posters, brochures, flyers, when managers provide information to their employees. Thank you very much, and that was the lecture for week number 4.